Whether you are an operator or a vendor, it's probable that you are not fully realizing the value of your managed service or managed service portfolio. Experience has taught us that in every managed service project there are misunderstandings, things which are not clear, missing functions, disconnected processes, and a general lack of clarity. So, how to get managed services back on track? Managed services is not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a bolt-on extra to core business. It is a business in itself. It is something that can only be executed successfully from a point of excellence. Half-cocked, the way is fraught with danger. As a vendor, leading your client without end-to-end knowledge of his business is opening up for problems. As the client, he is creating the possibility of losing his license, fines, and rapid subscriber churn. Can either vendor or operator afford these risks? No, of course not. In the scramble to grab every piece of managed service business, we have seen mistake after mistake. Okay, the business is won, but more importantly, the battle of delivery is lost. Why else would the trend be to change vendor at the end of the first contract? For once the decision to outsource has been made, it is imperative that if the current vendor is not successful, a new one be found. But the new vendor brings his own interpretation, his own concept in isolation, so in the cold light of day, operators swap from one vendor to another in the hope that one day they will find the right one. The real problem is, and always has been, a failure to define the service, scope, responsibilities and governance. We at TMS Consult see this almost every day. Just look at the number of disputes, including the hidden ones where service credit is paid out just to keep the client. We need to formalize the MS business. We need to be able to get above the squabble and bring the vision of clarity that this business needs. It is a new business and we are learning its shape, how it works, and what are the guiding principles. But most importantly, we need to accumulate knowledge and take advantage of the skills of the people who really know. Too often it has been a case of making a square peg fit a round hole. Now, with the differing needs of operators, it is the square peg that needs the round hole adapted. The corporation needs to learn how to be flexible and adaptable if it is going to exploit the opportunity. Being dogged with procedure will stifle the benefits, just assuredly as the slick cutthroat businessman will. Without the careful planning and execution is doomed from the start. The vendor who says, "Oh yes, I have the HR," needs to be tested. Vendors need to be able to show that they have the right support and culture, that they understand the operator's specific requirements, and that they have the flexibility to bring those within their portfolio. Operators need to test those issues and challenge the vendor on his delivery. Not only the service, but the whole gamut of the operation. If they don't, then they only have themselves to blame when forced into litigation. Vendors need to be ready to demonstrate their commitment to the client and, very importantly, the way their innovative practices will allow the vendor's skill to be leveraged for the benefit of the vendor and the client. Setting up projects to succeed by ensuring that the headcount is available as required, that the HR does actually fill all the seats, making sure that the third parties have the requisite documentation, ensuring that meaningful KPIs and SLAs have been selected, having the right governance and project control. It can be as simple as making sure as you know who your interface is, critically being sure that all necessary processes and procedures are in place, documented, and where they cross the vendor-client boundary, that they are seamless. With the growth in MS contracts of late, it is perhaps not surprising that there has been an explosion in legal battles. Yet the painful truth is that most of these could have been contained or avoided at a fraction of the final cost. Just like fraud control, there is always the potential for a legal battle, but a skillfully worded contract can pinch many of these off with a resolution before getting out of hand. Furthermore, a containment procedure providing a dispute resolution mechanism and arbitration process can protect both vendor and operator from a high-profile, high-risk and high-cost courtroom battle. A high cost which is a direct cost on the trading profit. Surely the worst thing to be doing is handing over hard-earned profit to lawyers and paying settlements. It is not difficult to see that both vendors and operators moving into the managed service space are faced with a whole spectrum of new issues, risks and control mechanisms, and it's hardly surprising that there have been many painful episodes. TMS Consult has studied these themes and crafted the key resource packaged and ready to go with the book, training, seminars and specific engagements, all with the simple aims of protecting both operator and vendor, unlocking the full potential of a managed service without wastage, turning disaster into a managed event whose effects are minimized, and bringing structure and organization so that two people will have the same perception of what a managed service is, and therefore it will be repeatable. Drawn from nearly 50 years working experience by the partners, this is the way to shortcut the risks and avoid the disasters that, unchecked, will continue to plague the industry until on the brink of bankruptcy, operators and vendors alike will be forced into such measures. TMS Consult's unique position also gives it the ability to do what is often talked about but rarely achieved. Create that end-to-end solution, so obvious and vital, yet the vendor and operator often lack the objectivity to craft. Much more than this, the wealth and knowledge and working practices that TMS Consult represents makes it the essential resource to create very effective managed services teams, enforce excellence and maximize the retention of revenue.